Hi, I'm Travis Cheney with Illinois River Watershed Partnership. I'm our restoration specialist. I oversee our riparian restoration program, which is a program designed to reforest 20 miles of stream bank in the Illinois River watershed. We're here today in downtown Siloam Springs, Arkansas on Sager Creek, which has been historically an extremely important resource for the community of Siloam Springs. Now, if you had come here 150 years ago, this would have looked significantly different. This stream bed that I'm standing in right now could theoretically have been 4 or 5 feet higher than it is now, meaning the stream would have been more connected to its floodplain. It would have been a lot easier for the stream to get up out of its floodplain. As land use has changed over the past century, the stream has become incised like a lot of streams in northwest Arkansas. But this stream has been very important to the city of Siloam Springs and the surrounding communities since the city's founding. And so the city government has done a lot in the past 10 to 15 years to work to improve this stream. One of the main ways that municipalities, landowners, ranchers, residential developers can improve water quality is by making sure that there is healthy, dense riparian vegetation along the stream. And what we mean by riparian vegetation is that vegetation that is within the floodplain of the stream. It's impossible to have a healthy, functioning stream without also having healthy, functioning riparian vegetation. They're both part of a complex system that keeps these stream systems healthy. Having healthy, dense riparian vegetation along your stream bank accomplishes several things. First of all, it builds roughness in the channel. When a stream is mowed all the way down to the water's edge, there's very little growing there to slow down the destructive stormwater and dissipate the energy. When you have trees, when you have grasses and sedges, when you have brush along your stream bank, it's going to break up some of that energy, slow down the stormwater, keep it from washing out banks downstream, and it's also going to help that water drop out some of the sediment and pollutants that it's carrying. When it drops out that sediment, sometimes it's building point bars like this, sometimes it's dropping soil and silt into the floodplain, increasing the fertility of the floodplain and allowing for more plant growth. Now, when you have more plant growth with deep roots, whether that be trees or shrubs or deep-rooted grasses, those plants are helping to infiltrate stormwater down into the soil profile and keep the water table at a high level. When all the vegetation is removed from a stream bank, sometimes you can get into a situation where the water table drops and you have very little flow in your stream. So in that case, a stream that used to flow year-round can in some cases become intermittent. It can flow only after a heavy rain. So having this dense riparian vegetation is essential whether you want to catch fish, whether you want to have clean drinking water, whether you want to cut hay. All of these things require dense, healthy vegetation to keep this stream system healthy. So we all know that humans love the sound of moving water. Communities throughout the centuries have been located next to water sources, and Siloam Springs, Arkansas, where we're at now, is no different. We're standing on the city's paved walking trail right next to Sager Creek. Now, if you were to go anywhere in northwest Arkansas, you're going to find something similar in almost every town you go to. Either a paved walking or cycling trail right next to a water body. Now, if you can imagine 10 years ago being on this paved trail, there were no trees here. It was mowed clear down to the bank. If it's August and it's 95 degrees, this black paved trail is extremely hot. Now, in the past 10 years, as the trees have grown up, not only is the creek shaded, the algal blooms reduced, but the paved walking trail adjacent to the stream is a lot more pleasant to use. On top of that, think of all the maintenance that went in every week to having several city staff going up and down several thousand feet of stream bank with mowers, weed eaters, trying to keep this thing maintained. Not only is it time intensive, but mowing on a steep bank like this is not safe. So the city has not only saved itself a lot of money stopping maintaining this every week with mowers, but they've created a really pleasant environment for folks to come out, enjoy the park, and enjoy the creek. It's a win for everybody. Now, 10 years ago, this bridge directly behind me was a dam. And where I'm standing right now, the water would have been 6 or 8 feet deep and just pretty stagnant. There's a lot of algae growing on top of it. The city removed the dam and put this span bridge in. And what I want to show y'all is the soil and sediment that's been recruited here just in the past 10 years, just enough to support life. So you can see there's black willows, there's sycamores. In the late summer, early fall, you see a lot of goldenrod, you see a lot of great blue lobelia, you see a lot of cardinal flower. These really gorgeous, important plants are already starting to colonize this little point bar as the river is finding its old meander again and healing itself. And the riparian vegetation plays a really important part in that. Not only is it slowing down the stormwater, but it's also, trapping pollutants. It's also providing pollinator and wildlife habitat, and it's really beautiful as well. So this is just a good example of how a stream can start healing itself just when we remove some of the human impediments to it. So here we are on the campus of John Brown University in Siloam Springs. We're just a half mile downstream from downtown Siloam. Still affected by the land use in an urban area, but we're in a part of the stream where the surrounding vegetation has changed very little over the past 100 years. It's stayed in somewhat of a riparian forest. And so when we get to this area, we start to see the stream taking more of a natural pattern. We're seeing more riffles and pools and runs, seeing different sizes of sediment in the stream bottom. A lot more fish. Me and my son come here quite often, catch smallmouth and largemouth, lots of little pumpkin seeds and bluegill in this stretch of the creek. And you can see there are trees hanging over the creek, a lot of cover under here for fish. You can see a lot of woody debris in the channel slowing down that storm flow. A lot of boulders and cobble, different sizes of sediment for different species to colonize and make a home and change this from just a stormwater conveyance into a healthy, functioning stream ecosystem. And a lot of that has to do with the way that this riparian vegetation interacts with the biology, the chemistry, and the hydrology of the creek that it is growing next to. Now, one of the things that makes the Illinois River watershed unique is the interbasin transfer of water. And what I mean by that is that most of the towns and municipalities in our region actually get their water from a different watershed, from the Beaver watershed. But then that water is taken from Beaver Lake, it's treated, it goes to homes and factories and schools all over the region. And then the wastewater, the effluents, is discharged into streams just like Sager Creek in the Illinois River watershed. So we're standing here on Sager Creek, just outside of Siloam Springs, and behind me is the Siloam Springs wastewater treatment plant, the effluents of which go straight into Sager Creek. Now, historically, one of the biggest problems in the Illinois River watershed was an excess amount of phosphorus, one of the nutrients that comes from wastewater treatment plants. Now, over the past 10 years, wastewater treatment plants across the region have spent millions and millions of dollars to upgrade their treatment facilities. And now they're putting significantly less nutrients into the water than they did 10, 15 years ago. A recent preliminary erosion study by IRWP has shown that now one of the main contributors of excess nutrients, mainly phosphorus, to our watershed doesn't come from wastewater treatment plants anymore. It comes from stream bank erosion. Our preliminary studies show that in some cases twice as much phosphorus is getting into our watershed from stream bank erosion than from all of the municipal water treatment facilities in the region combined. So that's why it's so important for us to try to address stormwater at its source, to make sure we keep really healthy, dense riparian vegetation, we can keep some of that sediment with all of those nutrients bound up in it from going downstream and polluting our water sources.